Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning. Selamat Hari Raya. On behalf of the panelists here, thank you, Tan Sri Michael Yeo, for having us here on stage to discuss on what we feel is very, very important, Tan Sri. And now we go on to the sort of next level. And we have here before us and with me on stage, very, very prominent, very, very experienced people. And we look forward to your input and insights. We hear the call from the previous speakers, VVIPs this morning, on the importance of ensuring unity towards Harmoni-Mesra. And we are just waiting for Tan Sri Omar to return. He'll be here in a few minutes, but if I can just recall what was actually given by the MC and also what the orientation has been since this morning, very important for us. We are all in this culture of diversity, this culture of working together, and look at us. I remember my son who went to a motivation program. When I came back, what did you learn from the motivator? So he said, salah pilih kawan, salah pilih masa depan. I thought that was very, very useful and very, very meaningful for all of us. So I hope that gives us a good example, platform for us to move forward. So if you can, look to your right. Is he or she your friend? And if you look to your left, is he or she your friend? I mean, we make new friends. We appreciate this kind of platform, Tan Sri Michael, because it gives us great pleasure to meet new people, very experienced figures, very experienced personnel, and this is very important for us to learn from one another. So we look forward to the insights and views from the speakers. So Tan Sri, thank you very much. So we've heard Tan Sri in the last panel just now. So as we know, Tan Sri is the chairman of the Dialog Rakyat Organizing Committee, Tan Sri Omar, and championing the Harmoni-Mesra concept, principles, and practices. So I would like to call upon Tan Sri to give his presentation. And I understand that we are given 12 minutes to listen to your presentation, Tan Sri Omar. So the floor is yours. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Facilitator, Professor Dr. Rozainon. Hadirin yang dihormati, it's me again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam Harmoni-Mesra. So continuing from my earlier presentation, accepting HPPS, harmonious, prosperous, progressive, and sustainability as the core components of our national aspiration for Sejahtera Malaysia, based on the 5 objectives of Rukun Negara, regardless of the political slogan of the government of the day. This is according to my proposal of a consistency paradigm. It is clear that the harmonious component is key to the maintenance and enhancement of the other 3 components. Now, there are many examples around the world where this harmony can lead to the 5 dreadful Ds: disruption, displacement, destruction, disfigurement, and death. In Malaysia, there are persistent threats to social harmony from recurring racism, toxic rhetorics, hateful tweets, interface intolerance, erosion of civility and empathy, abandonment of our acclaimed commitment to moderation and wasatiyah. It was in response to this disconcerting situation that led to the convening of the first Dialog Rakyat for National Cohesion and Unity on the 3rd of December way back in 2016 with the following objectives. Number one, to promote national cohesion and unity, rejecting elements of disharmony and divisiveness. Secondly, to establish unifying principles and formulate a code of ethical conduct based on the ethos of smart partnership, which are trust, respect, tolerance, transparency, and accommodation. Third, develop actionable practices for different communities. And number 5, to initiate a citizen movement for national cohesion, unity, and social harmony. The organizers were PICO, PAGE, MINDS, National Building Society, National Building School, G25, INSAF, Yayasan Perpaduan Malaysia, and CWO, with ASLI providing the secretarial support, and that responsibility was taken over by KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific. Between 2016 and 2019, 9 Dialog Rakyats were convened involving concerned individuals, schools and university communities, and neighborhood communities. The Harmoni-Mesra concept, principle and practices, and the Dialog Rakyat Code of Ethical Conduct are the outcome. Now promoting Harmoni-Mesra Malaysian communities and nurturing Harmoni-Mesra generation for Malaysia become the strategic mission for Dialog Rakyat. There are 4 components to Harmoni-Mesra. Number 1, recognizing the importance of and the need to increase harmony moments. These are social activities that bring members of communities together to interact, to socialize, to break down barriers and exchange experiences, to strengthen friendship, and to rekindle the spirit of muhibah and neighborliness. We have many of those. We celebrate Merdeka, Malaysia Day, we eat durian together, we visit each other during our celebration. Those are harmony moments. Now, the second part of our Harmoni-Mesra is, of course, to enhance the benefit of harmony moments by installing the rational reason why we should stay together on a longer term bonding. And by installing the national elements through formal, informal, and non-formal programs, meetings and discussions and other means to promote the understanding and appreciation of our national heritage, our cultures, our values, our national aspiration, and to address the issues of cultural ignorance and cultural arrogance, and about interfaith intolerance and religious prejudice. Then next is to introduce rituals or instruments that inspire the emotional attachment to sustain harmony. The song we heard earlier today, Harmoni-Mesra Saling Hormati, is one example. Embracing the Dialog Rakyat Code of Ethical Conduct as the Tata Peradaban for Harmoni-Mesra, that is, as our guidelines to our Budi Bahasa, Budi Bicara, and Budi Pekerti, fostering Harmoni-Mesra. I think we have forgotten about our Budi Bahasa, our Budi Bicara, Budi Pekerti. Now, the Code of Ethical Conduct is briefly the following. Number 1, to respect the Federal Constitution and uphold the Rukun Negara so as to preserve the independence and sovereignty of our nation. Second, to advocate justice and fairness transparency, and integrity in all aspects of management and governance. Number 3, to resolve contentions and differences through constructive engagement, always seeking for equitable, mutually beneficial outcomes. Number 4, to refrain from actions that offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate others. And number 5, to reject any form of discrimination, bigotry, extremism, unjustified acts causing harm to any individual or group, including any action that disrupt national cohesion and unity. These are the guidelines for our Budi Bahasa, Budi Bicara, and Budi Pekerti that will promote Harmoni-Mesra. Now, strengthening the social, the harmony movement with the rational and the emotional element, and adhering to the Dialog Rakyat Code of Ethical Conduct to establish strong bonding, spirit of goodwill, empathy, and kindness among citizens of Malaysia will contribute to sustain and enduring national cohesion, unity, and social harmony, leading to Sejahtera, which is Aman Makmur Malaysia. Currently, the print and social media are replete with expression of dismay and wise counsel from the Agong to the Malay Rulers, national leaders, and concerned citizens on the issues of social harmony. Actionable practices of the Harmoni-Mesra concept, principle, and practices add a new dimension to addressing this issue. One such actionable practice is the Harmoni-Mesra campus program initiated by UCSI University. This will be elaborated in the next session by Datuk Vice Chancellor of UCSI University. Other Harmoni-Mesra actionable practices should be developed for schools, all institutions of higher learning, civil society organizations, corporations, etc. Doing so would complement and support, the Minister just mentioned this just now, would support the recently launched Madani Harmony initiative of the government and will be a positive contribution to fostering HPPS or Sejahtera Malaysia as demanded by Rukun Negara. That is what Harmoni-Mesra is all about. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Very insightful perspective and sharing. And I'm sure it was from your experience, I suppose. Yeah. So I pick up core values and the need to promote Harmoni-Mesra and unity, and it's all positive. What I like also is that you have given two sides to the coin, and what we want to achieve, sometimes we have no choice, but we face the ups and downs, sometimes more downs, and therefore the negative side of promoting and achieving unity. Thank you, Tan Sri. I'd like to now call upon YB Kelvin, who is currently the Member of Parliament for P195 Bandar Kuching. So he's the Political Secretary to Human Resources Minister. I'm sure we all have interests in human resource. So I will now pass to YB Kelvin to share his views, experience, insights into promoting for Harmoni-Mesra.
Thank you so much again, Madam. And good morning, good afternoon, salam sejahtera, salam perpaduan to all guests, distinguished guests, Tan Sri Michael. Thank you so much for having me again. And of course, Tan Sri Omar for the wonderful presentation on the fundamentals and of course principles of Harmoni-Mesra. Listening to it, of course, I think the fundamentals and principles is something universally agreed upon every one of us. And I think one of the things that really caught my attention was the concept of having actionable, implementable actions. Because harmony or unity is something that constantly needs work on. So listening from previous speakers and also many other forums when we talk about unity, the common opening statements is that even after 66 years of Merdeka, even after so many years of living together as a nation, we still talk about unity. I have a little bit of a different view on that. My view is even after 66 years, even after 100 years, even 150 years, we need to constantly still talk about unity because it has a deliberate act, it's a deliberate action to keep this whole social cohesion, social understanding, and more importantly, empathy and understanding of one another. We always pride in our joy of having a diversity in Malaysia, but the strength of diversity is not through diversity itself, but understanding each and one another, harnessing the strength of one another, and the key to that is empathy. And I also, in principle, agree to the fact that the Rukun Negara should have maybe even a preamble towards the federal constitution. Of course, I myself have few questions. How would that entail? But in essence, we want to see the fundamentals of such beliefs or unity bringing us together be one of the most prominent, given more prominence even in our society nowadays. But as I said just now, we want to have some actionable implementations for it to happen. And one of the things I think as a politician, and I can maybe have the local stand-eye to say this, but in order for this to happen, there has to be some, not just leadership, but exemplified leadership on this matter. So all these initiatives are good if we do it, but it will mean nothing if there is no leaders to exemplify such fundamentals, such principles, such examples to everybody else. And that is where I think we need to encourage, maybe even promote this among national leaders, among politicians, be the first to actually go this, but not just political leaders. Sometimes we get a very bad rap for legitimate reasons, but even community leaders, religious leaders, and I'm not singling out any single community or any single religion, but it's across the board. I think the messaging, the narrative, and empathy is fundamental in what we are doing. And empathy does not mean we downplay each other's concerns of insecurity. Right just now, Tan Sri, in your previous session, you talked about the Saltgate scandal, Saltgate matter. When I was addressing these issues with different communities and different people that express their views, one of the common things that I need to address was that one side of one community says that this is a petty issue. This is such a small issue, why is it being blown apart? But I always have to stress to them, it's not a petty issue. It's a serious issue because this means a lot to a certain community. And we need to first reach to that understanding of the seriousness of that issue. But just because you recognize it's a serious issue doesn't mean that we cannot build bridge to understand, build bridge to move forward. And that is where I think each and every one of us need to play a part. Fundamentally, empathy is so important to build social cohesion, and empathy means understanding what the other side feels about it, what the other side puts gravity about it to it. And that is where we reach that level of understanding. Then we build bridges. We move forward. We find a way to move together and even encourage and promote understanding of that serious matter itself. So I mean, I'm supportive, of course, of this concept being brought into the universities, being brought into schools, because it has to be ingrained in us. Rukun Negara has to be ingrained in us. It's not just 5 statements or mission statements or vision statements, but I think there has to be exemplified to each and every one of us. The fundamental, actually for me, the last Rukun Negara, kesopanan dan kesusilaan. I was having a discussion just now with Mr. Andrew Koo, who is a person I respect from the Bar Council, and he said that actually a lot of laws, for example, stopping at a traffic light, stopping for a pedestrian, it's not just kedaulatan undang-undang. It's actually kesopanan dan kesusilaan. how do we teach Budi Bahasa, Budi Pekerti, Budi Bicara as the fundamental essence of what we believe in, how we react, how we speak, how we push forward a different agenda. I think that has to be captured, that has to be taught, that has to be ingrained, and that has to be embraced by Malaysians as a whole. But the fundamental ground is empathy, the fundamental ground is understanding, and the fundamental ground is how can we harness the principle and vision of the Federal Constitution. And of course for Sabah and Sarawak, this is how we wanted it, how Malaysian agreement was drafted, how the Federal Constitution should reflect such safeguards, such protection, and such cohesion. And with that, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, YB. So keywords here, harnessing strength towards unity, a topic long been promoted, exemplified leadership. It's always easier said than done. How do we transform the framework, Rukun Negara into action? And how do we teach Budi Pekerti to be polite, to be nice? And those are basically challenges. So I'd like to move to the next panelist, who is Mrs. Mariama Subramaniam. She is from Dialog Rakyat. And as you know, from the brief background information about Mrs. Mariama, she co-founded Vanguards for Change and serves in the Child Rights Coalition of Malaysia. She is a community mediator, a life planner advisor, and she believes in that unity in diversity is our strength, and it can be realized with the three protagonists of society. So let's hear from Mrs. Mariama on promoting, advocating towards Harmoni-Mesra. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Selamat pagi and salam perpaduan to all gathered here this morning. I will start a very quick presentation. Foremost, I would like to thank Tan Sri Omar for this collaboration and initiative. Dear friends who have gathered here, if you look at Tan Sri Omar, I'm so awed by his passion and his great respect to you, Tan Sri Omar, for his dedication in raising this flag of Harmoni-Mesra. Friends, as a nation, we have been constantly reminded, as mentioned by Tan Sri Omar just now, of the 5 principles of Rukun Negara, but neglecting to equally promote its objectives. So as a result, many are not aware of its very important 5 objectives, which was mentioned by him. One is the achieving a greater unity of her people, maintaining a democratic way of life, creating a just society and equitable sharing of prosperity, ensuring a liberal approach to our country's rich and diverse cultural traditions, and also building a progressive society by harnessing modern science and technology. You know, when we look around us, nature, we know that nature is subjected to an absolute organization to determine laws, to complete order, and a finished design. That's what nature is, from which it will never depart, to such a degree indeed that if each of us look carefully with our keen sight, from the smallest invisible atom up to a large bodies of world of existence, as the globe of the sun, or other great stars of the luminous spheres, actually whether you regard this, their arrangement, their composition, their form, or their movement, you'll find that all are in the highest degree of organization. And they are just under one law from which they will never depart. So dear friends, wouldn't it make sense then to think about the whole of humanity in the same way we view each human being? Every individual person has a physical body, and which actually operates harmoniously. And all our cells and systems and organs and limbs work together to give us consciousness, intelligence, motion, and life. So in the same way, we have this power to unify the body politic, the entire human world, so that it can function just as seamlessly and just as harmoniously. The body politic may be likened to human organism. As long as the various members and parts of the organism are coordinated and cooperating in harmony, we have a result of the expression of life in its fullest degree. When these members lack coordination and harmony, we have the reverse, in which the human organism is disease, dissolution, or death. Similarly, in the body politic of humanity, dissension, discord, and warfare are always destructive and inevitably fatal. All beings are dependent upon peace and coordination for every contingent, and phenomenal being is a composition of distinct elements. As long as there is affinity and cohesion among the constituent elements, strength and life are manifest. But when dissension and repulsion arise among them, disintegration follows, just like what Tan Sri mentioned earlier, the 5 dreadful Ds: disruption, displacement, destruction, disfigurement, and death. It will continue. So friends, scientifically, we now understand that the basis of unity and harmony and affinity in the life of the atom and the cell. Now, with those organizational structures, they are organic models for cohesiveness and cooperation. The beauty of Malaysia is its diversity and her strength, and that is her strength. We need to build on its multi-ethnicity, multi-religious, multicultural. We need all the 3 protagonists to labor together to help eliminate prejudice and hatred, create a viable, livable, and sustainable environment, and to bring a lasting peace in this country. Friends, this is not just a visionary goal. As beautiful and compelling it is not simple to reach. It requires enormous commitment and courage and sacrifice and a heart to do it. Each person who sees its beauty and believes in it can make it happen, and those seated here are part of who can bring this vision into reality. So we can ask ourselves a few questions on this. Can a society truly progress when its citizens live side by side, yet worlds apart? Their daily lives marked by parallel existence, then meaningful interaction. So every individual is a member of this body of humanity, be it in Malaysia or throughout the world. Each is essentially noble. We are all noble beings, and we all have a common purpose. It is to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization, both to advance in the material and spiritual. We are all citizens of this country and co-stewards of one planet, entitled to enjoy the benefits of this civilization that was mentioned before. And so, dear friends, if one member of this body is in anguish or distress, just like what we have witnessed during the pandemic or during the flood that happened, or even before that, all the members must necessarily suffer, and we saw that. And we also saw how many arose to help each other. So this growing awareness of our common heritage and interdependent future is redefining our understanding of ourselves and the challenges the way of contemporary society. Dear friends, the oneness that we are talking about does not imply uniformity, but rather it affirms the principle of unity in diversity, and more than mere tolerance of differences or celebration of superficial aspects of diverse culture or diversity in human family, The diversity in the human family should be the cause of abiding love and harmony. And that is what we want to see in our beloved country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mariama. Yeah, very symbolic perspective using the analogy of human being. If we mirror ourselves, that's, looking at ourselves, and therefore it's we, you, and I, everyone here, having this or carrying this responsibility towards Harmoni-Mesra. So what we claim, what we say, whatever that comes out from our mouth is basically a prayer. And that prayer, if it's negative, then the orientation will be negative. If it's, even though we hear something negative, if we put it and take it constructively, then hopefully that will into something positive and something that we can resolve together in a very constructive way. Thank you, Mrs. Mariama. We have our next panelist, who is Dr. Ari. He's a very experienced retired academician from University Malaya, and he is the former visiting scientist at MIMOS. He has done so much work. He has contributed to data cleansing in MIMOS, modeling of data throughputs, contributed algorithms for logistic platforms, and many others. So I now call upon Dr. Ari to share his experience, his insights towards core values and for Harmoni-Mesra.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen and friends. This session is about unity and empathy. I would spend more time on explaining empathy is more abstract. Unity is obvious, right? So I had put up some, I've put up some notes, not knowing that other speakers would obviously cover some of these notes. So I will go through the first 6 points reasonably fast because they have been covered indirectly. But I will spend more time on points 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, just to read it. First point, Rukun Negara has stood the test of time since 1970 as a beacon for national unity. Everybody acknowledges, every speaker speaks about it, and the country is aware of it. Point 2, of the 5 principles, the fifth principle is a bit loose. The 4 principles, like God, you can't shift it. Loyalty to the ruler, loyalty to the country, you can't shift it. Supremacy of law, you cannot shift it. Supremacy of constitution, you can't shift it. I will call them foundational. On the other hand, the 5th one is an orphan. It's not founded on something serious. In fact, there was a bit of debate as to what words should be used. The original version, I just adapted a bit. You need people to act courteously and morally. Acting courteously implies you have empathy with each other. Acting morally means you are moral in your personal habits and so on, as well as moral to the nation, no crimes, no corruption. In fact, there were a lot of people who wanted corruption to be stated as the 6th principle. But because Panchashila has got 5, they were reluctant to do 6. Okay, so that's the story there. So of the 5 principles, point 2, be courteous and act morally. Whereas the point 3, whereas the 4 principles are foundational, 5th can be further amplified. And that's what the Dialog Rakyat and all the programs we have been talking about is basically about. Harmoni-Mesra, the fostering of unity and empathy, is an initiative in this direction. And that's why we are here today. Tan Sri Omar and Tan Sri Michael are the principal principles driving this effort with the help of a select committee of educationists and professionals. All of us who have got interest can join. Okay? It's not a closed committee. Sixth one, just to say what the Dialog Riot was doing, the thrust of activities of the past 5 years has been to bring about an understanding of empathy among people as a precursor to entrenching unity among large groups. Okay, so now we will just go into 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 where we will discuss. Whereas unity is obvious when it happens, the ability to develop the skill of empathy among a group of people will yield surer and more robust unity. The reason I said it this way is, all of us are united when somebody in your group wins the prize, united. But after that, you forget about it. As Tantri says, moment to moment. There's empathy for a moment. When the second war came, I was a small boy. We were all very empathetic because we were all suffering equally, right? When the war goes on, then we say, this is my right, that's my right, etc. So this is all by moment. But how to make it more surer? So you need a physical change, mental change in every person to make yourself understand something about. The one concept that makes you do that is learning the habit of developing empathy with others, with larger groups, smaller groups, single person. How do you develop empathy and so on, other issues that we have to work out, right? It's well said, but we have to work out. So taking point 7, whereas unity is obvious when it happens, the ability to develop the skill of empathy among group members will yield surer and more robust unity. Take my case. I was an ordinary young boy, went to a reasonably good school and so on, and then to university and so on. If I ask myself, when did I develop any sense of empathy? I think I will develop a sense of empathy because I studied some subjects very strongly. In my case, it was mathematics. I used to read Euclid, triangles and so on, and you get enamored by the Greeks indirectly, and it builds a whole set of reasoning, emotion, reasoning. Okay, so I'll go through very quickly. So again, what is empathy? Briefly, it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It can be mutual, peer-to-peer. Empathy is usually being able to relate to each other. Now, second, now there are some differences. We need to know. Point 9. It's useful to note people's behavior to one another follow the following hierarchy. Can be apathetic, which means I don't care. That's not important. You're not important. Or it can be sympathetic. We just express words, sympathy. And then empathy. That's where you try to understand the person and try to appreciate and elevate. And finally, compassion, which is the ultimate, where you feel, I feel what you feel, act towards reducing suffering. So given that, let's go to the final thing, point 10. Our primary mission is to enhance unity intrinsically, not moment to moment only. That's welcome, but it should be long term, in good times and bad times. When there's shortage of food, people are running for food lorries, you've got to give the others a chance to have it first, right? That sort of thing. It happens when, mentally, physically, philosophically, empathy happens when cognition and emotion come together, is activated, as when empathy is present. So the challenge is to find multiple ways empathy can be evoked So there are many ways of evoking empathy. Drama evokes empathy. A dance evokes empathy. A great war evokes empathy of people of different types. But there are other ways of evoking empathy. Much has been mentioned. Now I want to go into technology. One of the questions we should ask, now that AI is in the works, who would have ever guessed that an essay can be written by a machine, driven by a program? So the question now is, technology with research going on can help to educate people to develop the sense of empathy. That's my message. That's machine learning, and there's an active set of researchers doing this all over the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. I was just about to stop you, but thank you. Okay, so we hear apathy, empathy, sympathy, compassion, and then emotions that will influence those characteristics, considerations of others. So the core values here is basically, to me, I interpret this as people values, and therefore to eradicate what is negative, anything that can go against the required core values and qualities towards achieving Harmoni-Mesra is in the person. And it starts from us as individuals. So I'd like to move to our next panelist, who is Ms. Vivianti Sarjuni. She's the Chief Executive Officer, Sabah Creative Economy and Innovation Center, CINIC. So her professional journey began in Kuala Lumpur back in 1999. So she garnered 22 years of diverse experience. She has collaborated with a lot of activities, social entrepreneurship, and I think the list will go on and on. A Chevening Scholar of 2022. You completed your Masters in Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So let us welcome Ms. Vivianti to share her insights, experience, and thoughts towards Harmoni-Mesra and core values. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Kopi sanangan means hello in my language. In Kadazan Dusun language. Kopi sanangan, sorry, I have sore throat actually. So sorry about that. Yeah, hello, Assalamualaikum, selamat tengah hari, and I'm very happy to be here. I feel so small on the stage right now. But you know, I don't have any presentation. I didn't even prepare my speech. I just want to tell my story from the heart. From my personal experience, I came from a mixed marriage family. My father is a Javanese from Batu Pahat, Johor. My mom is a Dusun Tatana, hampir pupus ya, Dusun Tatana ni. Dusun Tatana, one of the tribes in Sabah from Kuala Penyu. And I considered myself very fortunate because I've got the opportunity to see, diverse background in Malaysia, because every cuti sekolah, my dad will, the government officers last time, they'll get this free ticket to go back Semenanjung once a year, the whole family. So I considered myself very lucky to be seeing, diverse culture in Malaysia since I was very young. But not everyone can have that opportunity, especially the people in Sabah. I grew up in a palm oil plantation, very remote area of Sabah since I was 7. I only makan Pizza Hut when I was, first time makan Pizza Hut when I was 14 years old. So imagine yang lain-lain, anak buruh ladang and all that, they didn't get they got no opportunity to basically, even to go to Kota Kinabalu is even very difficult, let alone fly to Kuala Lumpur, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of work needs to be done in Malaysia, especially I resonate with YB Kelvin from Kuching. I think you can relate to me as well, especially in Sabah Sarawak and Semenanjung. Itu belum lagi I mentioned about in Sabah we have about I think more than close to 100 tribes in Sabah. And we have a long way to go when it comes to the subject of unity. But I am very grateful that we have this what you call this, the Harmoni-Mesra initiative by the government. Allow me to look at my notes. So yeah, basically that is my personal experience. I'm very fortunate because I've got the opportunity to see all of this, right? But if I want to continue to have this, but before that, I think I can share as well with you that 20 years ago, my ex-boss, was basically saying this to me, Vivi, for a Sabahan, you're quite clever. I repeat, Vivi, for a Sabahan, you're quite clever. My ex-boss in Kuala Lumpur lah, masa tu I work in Kuala Lumpur. So what does that mean? You've got that a lot? What does that mean? So from that moment on, that was a turning point for me to reassess again, like, okay, why? When I was young, I didn't have this feeling of being discriminated. But when I started working in Kuala Lumpur, I started to feel like, Sabah Sarawak ni macam we are being put in a different box. By right, there shouldn't be any box pun. So, but if I want to have that victim mindset all the time, you will live with, grudges and marah all the time and you'll gaduh with your friends and all that. But I ask myself, what kind of opportunity or, what can I do as an individual to overcome this challenge? What can I do to bridge the gap between, maybe people in Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak? So I'm very happy with this Harmoni-Mesra initiative. It is a very good guiding principle for us in Sabah as well to follow. I think after this, what we will do in my agency, I would definitely curate or initiate our plans based on the 3 core components of HPPS. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate this initiative. I'm really sorry because only when I receive an invitation from KSI, then only I know, there is such initiative. And I promise, balik Sabah nanti, I will promote this initiative through my agency to people in Sabah. So, what else? So, some of the initiatives that we do, because if you know Meranti, Magic, Cradle in Kuala Lumpur, so Scenic is basically the equivalent agency lah, but state level. So in Scenic, for us to even bawa programs from Semenanjung to Sabah and vice versa, is even difficult. Jangan cakap about bring initiative pun to Sabah and Sarawak, because even before you want to bring any programs to Sabah, alamak dah habis Even if you want to bring initiative to Sabah and Sarawak pun, I think people, I can say this because I'm a Sabahan as well, they will have this mindset of, are they trying to teach us? Are you going to take my land? And that's why I hope one of my maybe advice, because I did this mistake before. I thought like, dah kerja lama in KL, 25 years. I think, whatever initiative that I bring to Sabah back in 2020 is good for the Sabahan. I assume that is good for them, but it was my biggest mistake. So what I should have done in the first place is to, because I stayed in KL for quite more than 20 years, and I thought whatever good here, whatever works here in Peninsula will work in Sabah and Sarawak, and I was wrong. And what I could have done before was basically to engage myself with the community, trying to understand their way of life. And bukan semua. So when we come to Sabah and Sarawak, I hope we don't impose our idea like macam, you know, whatever works in Peninsula will work in Sabah and Sarawak. So I had this situation last month where a federal agency came to Sabah, and I invited one of the farmers from Kundasang to come and join the discussion as well. But what happened was the farmer was basically very angry because the presenter was telling them what to do instead of understanding them first. So this presenter presented about blueprint, you know, agriculture blueprint and all that. And he was very angry, like, look, I woke up at 4 a.m. from a drive from Kundasang at 5 a.m. sampai KK at 10 a.m. And I don't need to be here for you to school me about how to do agriculture. So I hope like next time when we want to bring any initiative to Sabah, I hope I like that word empathy, actually try to understand us first before you think, I mean like you, I don't, for lack of better words, what I'm trying to say is, you know, any initiative to make sure you understand first the demographic of people in Sabah yang sangat lagi ramai berbilang kaum. So again, I'm really sorry if my content is not structured, but I want to tell you the story from my heart. So I hope tidak ada lagi lah diskriminasi towards the Borneo people, and I'm very glad because initially thank you for mentioning about the Chevening. Actually, I got just elected as the president of Chevening Alumni Malaysia, and at first I was like so worried, like, will they choose a Sabahan, you know? But I told myself, like, look, I have to even if I'm not elected, I have to step up and show them that even Sabahan and Sarawakian pun boleh lead any national level initiative. And thank you so much. Koto huadan means terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vivi. Okay, so Ms. Vivi is calling to action, but not just to action, for better action, Ms. Vivi. And she experienced the underestimation. Also, YB Kelvin also claimed that as well. So, but both of you are the evidence of those negative perceptions. And both of you, you have shined, and you know opportunities are there. It's for us, for all the individuals, and I'm sure we will go back and we will encourage our community so that they can rise up to you know, at least same level as you all are. So you were saying good for them, good for who? And therefore, the recognition of ensuring what facilities, what advantages we should, and opportunities that we should give to the people there. And opportunities not once or twice, might not come again, you might miss the boat. And sometimes we do not know what we are missing until we lose it. So we see a lot of opportunities in front of us. You know, do we grab it or do we let go? It's all individual, it's up to us. And if it's not for us, it'll be for our peers, perhaps our juniors, our children, and deserving community members. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Vivi. I'd like to introduce our next panelist, who is Dr. Asma Abdullah, who has spent more than 22 years with human resource development. So again, people factor here. She's also active with Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia and PCOR. She has a lot of information, a lot of evidence behind us, and that she is also promoting Harmoni-Mesra. So silakan, Dr. Asma.
Thank you, Madam Facilitator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and salam madani. I want to start my presentation by referring to a corporate video. I don't know whether you have seen, next slide, this one. For those of you who have seen it, I think it captures the Harmoni-Mesra elements that Tan Sri Omar was talking about. It has the rational moments, it has the social moments, and the emotional moments. So I think my plea is that we should get stories like this, because this is based on a real story that has been captured by RHB in their corporate video. I think there are many stories like this that have not been captured. Instead, we only articulate those toxic, miserable, moments. So what I'd like to do today is to talk a little bit about the Harmoni-Mesra moments as I see it, and particularly as it applies to a multicultural Malaysia. So as Malaysians, we hold the shared duty of crafting moments filled with joy and unity. Our foundation rests upon mutual respect, togetherness, and love. Now, as stated by Dato' Ahmad in the video, our diverse backgrounds are differences, and differences are minute. But we have similarities. We can live in harmony as one big, happy family. Embracing newfound wisdom, let us navigate our interactions, guided by a collective heart, cultivating a culture adorned with harmony, humility, and happiness. So let's look at the three elements of Tan Sri's moment. For example, next slide. I have to give this cue because I don't have the clicker, but if you were to look at these three elements, you will find that the rational elements talks about the need to be cerebral. We need to engage the head in terms of understanding the rational moments, national Harmoni-Mesra moments. The next one is to look at the social elements. And I think we talk a little bit about rekindling the spirit of Muhibah. I have an article which KSI has distributed, and it is on the desk, on your table. So if you want to read about what I share on Muhibah, feel free to do so. So I think there are many social moments we have in this country, and we need to amplify that a bit more. And the third one is the emotional elements. Now, the emotional elements would be things that we can do in terms of videos, stories, like the corporate video that I mentioned earlier. So those are the three things that I hope we can do more of. Now, the next slide talks about, being multicultural. I think we hear a lot about Malaysia being a multicultural society, but do we exactly know what it is to be multicultural? And I find that based on my intercultural work, a lot of us relate at the intracultural level, and if we do that, we are only confining our networking to people of our own kind. Now, in Malaysia, we also need to move from being intracultural to intercultural. And I think this is predominantly an intercultural crowd that I think I am familiar with because I grew up in the 60s, baby boomer. But for those who are young, maybe they're not so familiar with being intercultural. And then the third one is being cross-cultural. And I think in Malaysia, if you think that you want to be a multicultural society, we need to move from being intra to inter and cross-cultural. Otherwise, what I am seeing now is people are very much at the intra-cultural level. So that is why we are, I think, having lots of problems, because people only gravitate towards their own kind. The next slide talks about, so what do we do? How can we combine the Harmoni-Mesra moments at the intra, inter, and cross-cultural? And these are some of the things that we need to do. Like, for example, if we are talking about the intra-cultural level, we need to focus on values and practices of one's culture. And we need to describe that to others. We also need to focus on sensitivities, biases, both conscious and unconscious, of our culture to others. And then the third one is at the emotional element. We need to focus on the effective feelings of one's culture through music and songs and the art that are meaningful to us. At the intercultural level, what do? We need to know the history of the country, history of the people that reside in this country. We need to know their socio-cultural background, their language, things that are very sensitive that can cause others when in conflict. And the third one is to be thinking about issues from the perspective of more than one ethnic group. Because if you're talking about intercultural, you need to be able to empathize, like what we heard earlier on, the need to empathize with people who are not like us. And then at the cross-cultural level, and I think we have many foreigners, or we also work with foreign counterparts, we need to tell them, or we need to share our similarities and differences with them so that we understand the potential conflict that we may be, we may confront. So the last one, I want to talk about, next slide. What can each of us do? I think we cannot rely on the schools or on the government or other people to want to do. So what we have to do is, at the intracultural level, we need to develop empathy. I think we heard a lot about that. This is where we need to move from being ethnocentric to being ethno-relative. Yeah? So this is what we need to do, because if you are at an intracultural level, you need to have empathy for the other. At the intercultural level, I mentioned the use of the adverse consequence thinking, which I mentioned in the article. And because we are relating with other cultures, we need to apply what I call the adverse consequence thinking, so that we can anticipate the potential problems should we launch an act of sorts. Like, for example, in the Saltgate incident. And at the cross-cultural level, I think it's important that we learn languages of the other, so that we are able to become players on the global stage. I just want to conclude my next slide with a cheer that I developed on the Harmoni-Mesra. This is one that I had a couple of months ago, a poem on multicultural Malaysia. Living together is what we want. Malaysians know we are one. Striving for harmony is the way. This we must do right away. Living together is what we want. Malaysians know we are one. Differences, similarities we admire. Peace and unity we all desire. Living together is what we want. Malaysians know we are one. Get rid of arrogance and ignorance, so practice respect and tolerance. Living together is what we want. Malaysians know we are one. With integration, not assimilations, that's the vision for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asma. So again, it's about people, it's about ourselves. The inter, cross-cultural, it's about knowing ourselves, know us, and know others. Thank you very much, our respected panelists in this session. I now would like to open the floor to Q&A. If anyone in the audience, if you'd like to ask questions, please come forward to the microphone, introduce yourself and your affiliation, and then you can direct your question to any one of the panelists. And if you can be brief and concise with your question. So please, anyone? Are we just eager to go for lunch? Can I have one question? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, is my live voice loud and clear to all of you panelists? I'll take that as a yes. All right. I had quite a nice session here listening to all of your testimonies on your own lives and how diversity is important in our society. I'd like to ask all the panelists a simple question about what they think about Sockgate and how it relates to the broader, spirit of the times. Whether we are indeed overreacting and not really focusing on things that really need to be focused on. That is, we're losing out on investments to a lot of our other nations while we bicker over these things. So should we draw a line between empathy and just growing thicker skin, where we not only save ourselves the trouble of fighting over petty things, but diverting our energy to things that actually matter, that is, becoming a leader in IC design, which would be much more profitable in the long term. I think Mr. Kelvin will know of this. His own chief minister has his energies directed correctly in trying to establish Sarawak as an IC design hub, while other nations are not similarly enthusiastic about this new opportunity. So I'd like to know whether or not you feel that we could outgrow our perceived childishness in arguing over these things by simply growing thicker skin. And my affiliation is with a Quantum Laser Science Lab in University Malaya under Dr. Ruben Oi, seated behind there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you want all the panelists to answer, I don't think we can make it in just about 4 minutes.
Perhaps you could be brief or allow Mr. Kevin to respond promptly.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I think on this issue of Sockgate, I've made my personal feelings quite public in terms of addressing some of the, in my view, statements that were made. They're not helpful, not just to address the issue, but in the long term on issues of nation building. But as I said at the beginning just now, we need to understand what the other side thinks first before we propose maybe what we perceive as a better option. For example, on our side, we may think it's very petty, we may think it's not constructive, we may think it's time wasting, we think it's not beneficial in the long term. I'm not saying it is not. But before we bring forth such an argument or such understanding to the other parties, we need to address their concerns as well. As I said just now, this issue of Kalimah Allah is something very serious, something very important for especially the Malay Muslim community. So we need to come to that point of understanding first. But even in that differences of opinion, I always say that we need some political leadership to show that the way to address it is to understand, is to integrate, and to propose a way forward. So that is where there are media here, but I can even say that I actually contacted my colleague, Dr. Akmal, on this matter and tried to speak to him many a times. I say, brother, let's sit down, let's discuss on a way forward to address, yes, the sensitivities, insecurities that are being maybe to a certain extent challenged, but let's find a way forward. Because I think as young leaders, I think that's the politics we want to bring, that's the solution that we want to bring to address this issue. So that is where I think more leaders need to speak about what you said just now. What is the long-term gain? What are the things we need to focus on? How do we build our nation to be a conducive ecosystem for investments, a conducive ecosystem for development and change? But in order to bring that message and statement, we cannot sweep aside the insecurities, concerns raised by certain communities. So as I said, empathy is important. Harnessing diversity is not easy, but we need that maybe effort, leadership, examples, and heart and passion to do so. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, YB Kelvin. Yeah, it's about what we can do and whether we will do it. It's also about mindset and what we wish also in terms of empathy, how we can consider better of others while we look after our own home. Thank you. Is there one more question perhaps? If none, shall we close this session? Thank you very much, panelists, for your insights and views, and call to better action, Dr. Vivi. Soon to be Dr. Vivi. Call to better action. Yeah, thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you, YB Kelvin. Thank you, Dr. Asma. Thank you, Mrs. Mariama. Thank you, Dr. Ari and Ms. Vivi. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and for your participation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And have a very good lunch and networking after this. Assalamualaikum.